Well, hello there. Now, this is endyourschurch@gmail.com. ENDYASCHURCH@gmail.com. Everything in this program and every programs that we present on the YouTube is copyrighted by Richard Paul Hobbs at gmail.com. And this is early in the morning, around 3:30, 3:45. It is Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and it seems as though I have a tendency these days to wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning, or 4, and I seem to tend to fall asleep around 6 or 7 o'clock at night, sometimes at 5. I seem to get dead and need to lay down and sleep, but some days I go past that and I survive. It's complicated because there's not enough time to do everything we'd like to do, and I don't have enough strength to do all of it. I'm in the wheelchair. I don't know if you can see the wheelchair, but I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm not completely stuck in the wheelchair. I can get up and walk a few feet. I can walk 10 feet. I could possibly walk a lot further. Doing all of that with a support cane. I've been told or ordered to do certain things. I got to get the tub empty, which I would like to have done today, Tuesday, but I couldn't do it. I did get some stuff straightened out in the bedroom, which is used like a storage closet right now because it's so cold in there. It's freezing in there. And I'm very grateful to God that the cold has stayed on in April. I hope that within the next week it stays cold enough to keep that room working as a pantry, as a refrigerating place, which it doesn't quite work as well as. It's a little bit warmer than it needs to be sometimes there. So some of the stuff deteriorates. But all in all, I should be very grateful to Jesus. There I'm yawning. And I should be grateful, and I should be grateful to Jesus, but I'm a wicked human being. I'm stiff-necked, I'm a liar, I'm a thief. Everything I say is a lie. So that's a paradox, isn't it? If a person says everything they say is a lie, then either they're telling the truth, which means everything they say is not a lie. So then if they're telling the truth about that, then they're a liar. So, and of course not everybody, but many, many Americans think that they're basically good, and because of their basic goodness, they're going to be able to survive without the help of God. And they will be able to survive without the help of God. But they'll be eternally separated from God and God's presence and all the goodness that comes from God. And I'll tell you, there is no goodness outside of the Creator God. And the only way to get a hold of that goodness and to benefit from it and to enjoy it without having to lose the opportunity and the ability to enjoy that is to seek to fellowship with God through God's Messiah, which I am convinced who God's Messiah is, and I'll say it from time to time, but I can't convince you of who God's Messiah is. If you're going to be convinced of it, you need to be convinced of it by God, God's self, and for that to happen, you have to be open-minded to something that you're not open-minded to. Richard Feynman, the theoretical physicist, taught us that, because when you get down to the bottom of it, to the quirks and to the quarks and to the most basic things that these atheists who call themselves scientists tend to suggest they think is the truth, what you end up with is a situation where two things that don't agree with each other turn out both to be right. The opposites are true. Each opposite is true. And so then what they are coming to understand, apparently, in this physicist, this business, is that they don't understand the truth from science, that science cannot give us the truth because science is confused, which, if you're alert and you open any science textbook in the world, you will come to realize, because the first chapter in every science book says the same thing, science textbook. It says the same thing. It says, well, so many years ago, we thought we knew what we were doing. They thought they knew the truth, and they thought this was true and that was true. But now we've come to realize that they were wrong, those idiots, and we are not idiots. We really know what's going on, and here it is in this textbook. The future, the truth, the real truth. The only problem is that 50 years later, they write another one of those textbooks, and the first chapter says the same thing. 50 years later, the scientists are going to say that the current scientists were all a bunch of stupid nuts, didn't know what they were talking about. Now we'll show you the real truth. And so I guess they do that to sell science books. I don't know. And then there seems to be some things in science, in biology, that seem to be constants, that seem to not change. But that happens in spite of the scientists rather than because of it. Because in the most cases, most science is not science at all, according to what the scientists say science is, which is a test that you can do that's provable, that will always work out the same way forever. And one problem with that is that people haven't been doing the test that long, so you don't really know if as time goes by, over a long period of time, you might get a different result than you once got. And so then you have situations like Einstein, who was considered an absolute nut and completely wrong until the things he predicted would happen happened the way he predicted them. And then that day he became the super genius that ever lived on the face of the earth, according to everybody. But it wasn't, he didn't think that of himself, and neither did Tesla, and Tesla was probably a much greater genius than anybody that we are aware of, and probably the best geniuses, the greatest minds that ever lived, probably were aborted by their parents. Or maybe they weren't aborted, but maybe they only got to live to 3 or 8. Or maybe they were born in a time when what they knew couldn't do them much good, because there just wasn't enough technology to turn what they understood into something usable or practical. And now we got a strange situation because we got cars, and we got people who are going to be driving cars who are blind. And well, they're not going to really be driving the cars are going to drive themselves. And we have the cars already. They exist, apparently, at least in prototypes, or at least in workable, usable examples, but they're not out yet. And I'm going to suspect that the Chinese are going to come out with them before we do. I don't know if that's true, but maybe the Indians will come up with them first. And, the United States is talked about in the Bible. I know it is because I read the Bible 30 times. Well, not the whole Bible all the way through 30 times, but I read it 3 times through when I was 11 or somewhere around then, because people had been talking about how the Bible, they questioned whether the Bible was real. In fact, they said it wasn't real. It wasn't, the stories weren't true. They were just fake. But I didn't understand why they would say that. I didn't understand why a preacher would agree with them. I didn't say I was right about it, because I probably wasn't right. But why should a preacher, I mean, if a guy or a girl or a person, they're a preacher and they think that the Bible isn't true, why in the world are they doing being a preacher? But that's my idea. That's maybe it's just good to be a preacher, whether you believe the Bible is true or you believe it's a lie. Then you're a preacher and you're teaching something to other people that you believe is a lie. Well, what do you do with the child? Do you take the child and tell them the story of David and Goliath and then tell them, well, it wasn't really true. Goliath wasn't really a giant and David wasn't really a boy. I mean, people like the Bible, but they don't read it. And it's the saddest thing is that that's the only book in the world that people have opinions of it without ever having actually read it, the actual book. And there's a whole lot of prejudice that we have, prejudicial ideas, prejudged ideas that we've been taught by other human beings, our parents and others, and they tell us ideas that are not in the Bible. They're not said in the Bible. And yet these theologians and these geniuses insist that that's what the Bible means. And yet the Bible doesn't say that at all. And it's true on both sides. It's true on the sides of the liberals that just don't believe the Bible is the Word of God at all. And it's also true on the side of a lot of the conservatives, because unfortunately the conservative Christian church is being ruled by atheists. I mean, the debate is being determined by atheists. The religious debate in the world is, when you get into a question, the real question is who gets to say what the question will be. Because I can tell you questions and the questions will be lies. I can ask you a question and the question will be a lie. And then whichever way you answer the question, you're going to answer the question with a lie, because the question maybe presumes something that isn't true, but everyone will agree is true at the time, and so that's not really good. But that's what we got going on. And so you got persons like Donald Trump, who's the president of the United States, there's a wonderful truth that he's the president, because who expected that he would be president? Nobody. Just like nobody expected Teddy Roosevelt would be president. In fact, J.P. Morgan and John Rockefeller, who were great enemies, got together on this one issue over Teddy Roosevelt. They both wanted to quiet him down and squash him and quash him and keep him from doing what he was seeming like he was going to do, which was pull the rug out from underneath these giants, these industrial giants and these very wealthy persons who had a lot of control of things. And Teddy Roosevelt did take the rug from under them, because they thought they put him in the vice presidency because of the myth that no vice president would ever get to be president, because no one had succeeded in doing that since old Kinderhook, which is Van Buren. So, the real problem is that few people really have any real idea of the history of the world or of themselves. Few people really know what they're talking about. Most people don't even know what they're thinking about. The facts that they go on aren't facts at all, and they have no idea they're not, because they never checked them out. Now, I read the whole Koran, I read the whole Bible, I read the whole Book of Mormon. And I read many other texts, and some of them I didn't read, but I read digests of them, or I got what I believe are accurate explanations of what they are. And, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of information, and it's pretty hard for anybody to have a little bit of each of those pieces of information. But God's blessed me that I've had an incredible, eclectic life. And so now we're going to cut this down so it doesn't go past 15 minutes. This is copyrighted Richard Paul Hobbs, gmail.com. This is End Yours Church. Send an email to letsendyours@gmail.com. Letsendyours@gmail.com. And we're going to do something. The poor are going to do something that the rich never did and try to straighten the world out for Jesus and help everyone to know God. Come again. We'll hope to see you. Bye.